Okay, now next we're going to look at ways to manage this group of prefabs. We haven't really created a collection of prefabs at this point. Let's switch over now to the scene. Okay, so just to remind you from the other videos, we have the scene builder. If I press play, what's happening is that in the scene, well, let's see if I saved my code. If I came back over here and I said save, all right, that's better. If I come over to that code and I come back here and I press play, you're going to see a whole bunch of apples in my scene, and they all drop and they all fall off the world. And if we were to the scene, you'd see, if I scrolled out quick enough, you'd see them all. They're all dropping down here. They're somewhere. They're dropping out past infinity and so on, wherever. Okay, so we have this infinite bunch of scenes there. Let's close that project, open that project. There we go. Okay, so here's our apples that are being created in our scene builder. So this is our kind of world building script here. And what it does is it instantiates a bunch of apple prefabs starting at -8 going to +8. So 17 of them, right? 16 and 8 and 8, and then 1 at the center. All right, and it just positions there. So the question is, how can I manage them? How can I use lists? How can I use arrays to potentially manage these? Because I want to do something. I want to destroy them. I want them to behave in some way. Okay, so just to make the point, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a quick button in the scene on a canvas. So I'll go over here, UI, and I will create a button. And let's see, we'll go to the canvas, and this button, the job of the button is going to be pretty simple. Button, we're going to move it towards the center of the canvas, and once again, button. And the job of the button is going to be destroy the apples. Okay, so let's call this button, put some text on it, destroy apples. All right, easy enough. Destroy apples. That's the job of the button. So in order to do that, we're going to need something in our scene builder. We'll do that in there for now. That's going to be destroy apples. Public void destroy apples. There's a new function, and we're going to say print destroy the apples here, all of them. All right, and being good programmers, we check every time. We added some code. Let's make sure. We'll go to the button. We will add that. Come over here, go to scene. Okay, this is a scene builder function. So we'll say, okay, scene builder. I did something over there. Scene builder, and we're going to look for destroy all apples. Destroy apples. There we go. Destroy apples. All right, and let's hit play. Let's see if I get those errors there. What did I do? Okay, there they are. Destroy apples. It doesn't do anything. Destroy the apples here, all of them. Okay, obviously didn't destroy any apples. So that's no good. I'm not destroying any apples yet. All right, so first method we're going to look at. Okay, and this is the one that gets covered in the book, in the Prototyping Games in Unity book. And it's not my favorite method, because it's sort of inefficient. So let's look at our prefabs, our apple tree prefabs, and go to our red apple. Here's our red apple. And let's give it some way of basically modifying or some way of referring to this apple, even though it's a prefab. So you have to have established sort of some constant, something it's going to have in common with all other apples. And what we're going to do is we're going to open the prefab, and now we're going to be editing just this prefab. See, it's just the red apple prefab. Nothing in the scene, just editing that. And what we're going to do is we're going to tag it. We're going to tag this as something. So we're going to add a tag, and we're going to get more into tags later, but we're going to create this thing called an apple tag, right? That just creates a script tag that we can use. And now any object, in addition to having a transform, I didn't tell you this before, but all objects can have a tag on them. We're going to put this one, we're going to tag them as apple. We'll get into layers as well later. That's another way to kind of group things. But now we're going to have this common tag for all apples. They're all going to be tagged, red apples are going to be tagged apple. Okay. So that's going to be a way we can sort of refer to them and figure out where they are in the scene. We could actually look for things with that tag now. All right, tag apple. So let's go back to the scene, and notice we don't have any apples in the scene yet. I'm gonna press play real quick and pause. Okay, and let's look at any of these apples. You'll notice they are all tagged apple, and they're all named red apple clone. But let's look at the tag for now. Like I said, this is what the textbook, the Program in Unity textbook does. So now I have a way, and this is built into Unity, of referring to those. I could say, if I wanted to, I can get all of those apples. Okay, and the way I do that is I use, remember GameObject.find, right? We remember that one, hopefully. That'd be a way to get things with, if we just said find, we would refer to them by their name. But instead, we're going to refer to find objects with tag. Okay, you'll notice this returns an array of game objects. All right, and the tag that we're going to look for is called apple. So this returns an array of game objects that have that tag in them. All right, so even though I didn't keep track, I didn't actually build an array here, I effectively have a way to say, okay, here's an array of those. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, I could say destroy apples, find all of them. And the reason I don't like using tags is that it's going to wind up basically looking through all the game objects. Maybe there's some hashing and some things going on to try to make it a little bit more efficient. But it's basically going to have to look through lots and lots of game objects in order to find out which ones have that apple tag on them. All right, but it is a convenient way. Like say up here, then I said, all right, I want to keep track of a list, excuse me, not a list, but an array of apples. So I could declare public, public is going to be a game object. It's an array of game objects because apples are game objects in this case. And I'll call it apple array. Okay, so now I've declared an array of apples here. Doesn't have anything in them. Doesn't have any size. It's just a sort of a container ready to put that in. So what I can do is I'll use this to fill in. After I create all those apples, I can then use this to say, oh, all right, apple array, whoops, equals that. All right, so now I'm going to say this apple array is equal to the array of game objects that is returned by find game objects with tag apple. All right, so now I have that will exist. And I've declared it to be public. So let's watch what happens here. So we go over here, we have our scene builder, apple array, nothing, size is 0. I hit play and I'm going to pause. Okay, size 17. There are 17 apples, and here they all are. There are all the elements, right? So I created that using that array, using this find game objects with tag, which I don't like, but hey, I can use it. Now, another way, if I wanted to, here's the thing about arrays, right? We like them to be of fixed size, right? So in order to really do that, we have to say, I'm forgetting off the top of my head, C# initializing. Here we go. Equals new, and it's going to be new game object. And how many of them do we want? New game object, in this case 17, right? All right, so now I have an apple array that has a size for 17 17 game objects in this apple array, right? And I'm going to keep track of them as follows. Okay, as I instantiate them, I could say apple array at some location I equals that. Now it doesn't know what I is, so here I'll say, before I get in here, I'll say int I. This is kind of, we'll just say int I equals 0. You're used to seeing I as an iterator inside this loop, but I could just be used anywhere there, right? So int I equals 0, so the 0th one is going to be set there. And then on every subsequent run through, we could say I plus plus. Okay, so the 0th one, first apple, and so on and so on and so on. I'm just going to run through there. Now, another way I could do that is I could say int I equals 0, comma, right? I can actually do these sort of compound. I think I can do this. Let's get rid of that, maybe. I used to be able to do this. So what happens if I do it this way? No, can't do. All right, I'll leave it up here for now. I equals 0. There's a way to do compound things in there. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Or it used to be. Maybe I'm thinking of C back in the day. All right, so anyway, it's going to go through each one. And now I don't have to use this, right? So I don't have to search through for those tags. I can actually go ahead and fill that apple array because I know it's 17. That's the downside here, is that I need to know if I'm using an array, and ahead of time I have to say how many things are in that array. Otherwise I get into this weird kind of resizing thing, and that's no fun with arrays. So the end result, hopefully, I hit play and pause. What happened here? Index out of range. Index is out of range. What happened? Did I not have enough space? I thought I said 17. Shouldn't that be enough? What's going on here? I equals 0, I plus plus. Oh no. All right. Stop. All right, let's go back here. Save that. Clear. Restart the game. Index was outside of the bounds of the array. I love when I try to do things a different way and it doesn't quite work out. Let me think about that for a second. Okay. 5. Why am I? Well, am I not declaring something correctly? All right, I must be doing something right. Index was outside the bounds of the array. You would think that I have declared it to be the right size here. Interesting. All right. That is an odd case of that I could not initialize this. I could not initialize this as part of the class declaration there. Probably because it wasn't static. That probably was the case. Shouldn't have done that. All right. What if I declared this? Yeah, that's kind of... have to leave that for another day. Okay, so the end result is the same in that we want to say, all right, we're going to predefine this to be 18 game objects, or actually even 17 should work now. So 16 plus 1, save. Come over here, hit play, hit pause. You'll see, yep, okay, I've got them again. There are my red apples. And I've done that slightly more efficiently because I did not search through the array looking, or search through all the objects in the scene, actually looking for that tag. Okay, but now I have my array of apples, and what I can do now that I have the array is I'm going to do something useful with this. I'm going to just go ahead and destroy all those apples for each. And I'm going to say game object, and we'll call it C apple, the current apple, in apple array. I'm going to destroy that game object. And the way you destroy game objects is there's a function called destroy. And so we'll say C apple. That will destroy the current apple, and it will iterate through. Basically, this will run on every apple in the apple array. Okay, save that, come up here, hit play, and in my scene, we'll see all the apples will show up quickly. Destroy, and I destroyed them, got rid of them. Boom, all gone. Now, you'll see there are no more elements in the array. So here in Scene Builder, you'll notice that they are all now missing. I destroyed them all, right? The space is still there for them, but they are empty. The game objects do not, they're no longer valid game objects because they are destroyed. All right. So if I wanted to actually get rid of the array, I'd have to, like, say, oh, new game object and so on, reinitialize that array to some specific thing. This did not really touch the array. It just destroyed the apples that were in the array. All right. So that's the array version. And you can see, subject to some limitations there about, we have to refer to them in order, we have to add them in a certain order, and so on. So let's do that now for lists. Let's do the list version. Okay, and maybe you'll see why I sort of like lists and why I think they're preferable. So let's back out these changes. All right. So we'll get back to the point where there's no apple array in here. All right. Don't need this I, and so on. All right. So if I did back out everything, hit play, don't get any errors, and destroy apples doesn't do anything anymore. Okay. All right. So let's put them in a list. All right. The cool thing, of course, like I mentioned about a list, is that you do not need to think about or worry about the size of the list ahead of time. Right? So we can say here's a list of game objects, right? And we will call it apple list. Something like that, apple list. Okay, try this. And here, I'm pretty sure I've done this before. We can say new list of game objects, right? And I'm pretty sure that's legit. I can do that. So now I've declared and initialized my list of game objects and called it apple list. So how do I put things into that list? All right. I just say apple list.add. And now what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, for each apple that I'm creating here, I'm immediately taking the value that was returned and handing that to my add function. Now, I could have done something if I wanted to be careful. Game object T apple for temporary apple. And I could say, I'll fix that in a second. T apple equals, and paste. All right? So I'm creating a temporary thing to hold that in. This has to be capitalized, game object, right? Game object temp apple, get a reference to it, and add t apple, okay? So that's just a way to have a temporary, so because maybe I wanted to do some of this, maybe I wanted to change some things about this before adding it to the list. So I can do that, right? So now, save. If we come over here, we press play. Whoops, not pause. We press play, and if all goes well, if I did this too quickly, and hit there, we'll go to Scene Builder. We will now see in Scene Builder, where are we? Scene Builder. That, oh, we didn't declare it to be public, so we can't see it here. So let's do that. Let's go back here. Public list. Sorry. One more time. Play. Pause. Scene Builder. There's our list of apples. Size is 17, and so on. So here it looks just the same, right? There are all our apples. All right. Now, what if we want to actually destroy the apples like we set out to do in the last one? So we have destroy apples. How do we destroy the apples, taking them out of list? Well, it's going to look awful similar. For each game object in apple list, get that right. For each game object, and we'll call it what, C apple is what we called it there, in apple list, we can say destroy C apple, destroy that current apple. All right, save. And ready, pause. And if I go back to the game and unpause, destroy apples. Whoops, missed it. Try it again. Ready, destroy apples. Boom, gone. Destroyed all of them. All right. So the functionality was the same, right? We have basically done our for each. So for each you can use either on the apple list or apple array. And the cool thing now is that if we're done with the apples and we have, you see that we have that, we're still going to wind up with, after they're destroyed, over here, destroyed, pause, we look at the scene builder, it still has the list. They're still there as well. We didn't actually get rid of the items off the list, but the game objects that were in those slots, they're gone, right? So we might as well come over here and say apple list dot what? Clear. Okay, that will clear the apple list. It will remove all of those entries, get rid of all of them. No specific one, boom, just get rid of all of them. Now remember, destroying the game object and clearing the list are two different things, right? The list is a container for all those apples. So we destroy the objects, and then we have to clear the list. Now you can do things like if, say, you wanted to go through and if you wanted to remove a certain apple from that list, then you're going to be very careful about doing this for each on some sort of collection. If you do a for each on a collection, you should not be modifying the collection inside of that for each. So for that, we'd have to be careful. We'll discuss that a little bit later. But I wanted to kind of show you the advantages here, and we'll get into some more techniques for sort of automatically adding and deleting things from lists with game objects in a future version of this. All right. So hopefully that will help understand the ways to actually implement our lists and potential arrays. All right, so always a good idea. My rule of thumb is if you know exactly the number of objects you're going to be dealing with, like in the apple tree game, we're going to have usually 3 or 4 or 5, a set number of baskets. If you know exactly the number of elements you're going to have, if you always have 3 tanks, or at most you have 5 lives, something like that, that might be a reason to use an array. If, on the other hand, you don't know and you just want to keep track of them because you may need to destroy them all simultaneously or might need to do something, then in that case a list is more flexible. List is going to be your friend for that.